with the first pick.
Thunderstruck! Thunderstruck! Yeah, Thunderstruck!
Welcome into the Fantasy Rant podcast presented by Stadium Rant. Check out Stadium Rant on YouTube and all social media platforms for tons of great content. I'm your host, Dan Baker, alongside Mason Beck, Lee Cook, and Evan Gooding. Fantasy Rant crew here to bring you some more Civil War. We're switching up the teams. Still a couple of guys paired up with each other that don't necessarily see eye to eye on redraft values. We're going to talk this through, see who has the better team at the end of it. And if you're out there watching this, make sure you comment. We are going to be changing up a couple of things. We have our timer here set at 5 minutes so we can talk to you guys, evaluate some of our picks. But if we get inside of 1 minute and the team still hasn't decided, that team has to drink. And, you know, we be drinking. And if they get inside 30 seconds, whoever has the most comments, whatever player has commented the most out there by you fans, we are going to select that player within reason. If it is a first round pick and somehow they get within 30 seconds, we're not drafting like Jonnu Smith in the first. So everyone keep that in mind. With that said, let's get this thing going. Right now, Mason, turn yourself on auto.
It keeps taking me off, but
yeah, I got to turn myself on as well.
There must have been some weird sleeper thing then. Right now, me and Mason are drafting together. We are going to be at the 105. Lee and Evan are drafting together at the 108. Let's get this thing started. Alrighty, we got some guys out there. Appreciate you guys. West Coast is the best coast. I don't know if I agree with that, but I will throw it out there. And then we got correct. Let me throw that up there really quick. If we can't agree as the team, then you guys get to make the pick. That is how it goes. So what happens? Press the submit button. Okay, awesome. All right, let's get this thing rolling. Again, we are at the 5 spot, me and Mason. First off the board, CeeDee Lamb, Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, and we are up at the 5th pick. Let's see here, Mason. We got Tyreek on the board somehow still. I feel like this is a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, for this, it's, not adding too much discussion. I just think Tyreek.
If y'all are out there and you are watching this, commenting, join us for our next one so we don't have Tyreek making it to the 5th overall pick. We'll get you in the draft, make some realistic picks for getting you ready for your leagues. After that goes Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Evan and Lee are up for their first pick.
Woo. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Breece Hall is the obvious pick here. Any arguments for anybody else?
One of the top two, and I like going RB heavy at the top here for sure. Let's go.
You still like going RB heavy, although the fantasy landscape is kind of changed.
Last year I stayed away from it. This year I'm kind of I can't even remember what I've been doing, but I feel like I zig and zag based on certain things. Like this rookie class I really love, and I think 2 years ago I really loved it too, and drafted a lot of wide receivers late and went RB early, and it panned out. So you kind of got to.
Okay, so when you're saying the rookie class, you're saying the rookie wide receiver class?
Yeah, I am the drafter of rookies, as you can see. So,
I understand loving the rookie wide receiver class. I was just making sure it wasn't the RB class because it's definitely a down year as far as rookie running backs go. I do think that if you are to go with one of these early guys, you guys got a good one. I think truly workhorse role, it's only CMC, Bijan and Breece, and I'd say maybe Travis Etienne.
So this is not to interrupt, but our clock is ticking, and we don't want to forfeit our pick. This is a little tougher for me, Evan. I'm leaning wide receiver. I love Kyron this year, but I still feel like this might be a hair early, especially we got Breece in the last round. To me, it's Marvin Harrison or Chris Olave.
I'm going to lean Harrison here, I think. Were
Yeah.
you going to say you
Marvin
lean Chris
Harrison.
Olave?
Say again.
Were you going to say you lean Olave?
I definitely feel like the floor is probably higher for Olave, but the quarterback situation, the ceiling for Harrison so much higher. I'd probably lean Harrison as well.
I think Harrison here. That's who I would pick.
Yeah, I mean Harrison's going to have that, lock on the wide receiver one role.
Yeah.
I know Evan kind of disagrees, but Michael Wilson, a distant wide receiver two in comparison. And after that, just Greg Dortch and Trey McBride. I like that. Mason, we are on the clock here. We
Hey, you
have
forgot about Zay Jones for Arizona. He's going to do something.
Zay Jones is solid. He's solid if he can stay healthy. All right, so right now we got Tyreek Hill. They went with Breece Hall and Marvin Harrison. After Harrison goes Kyron Williams and Sam Laporta. Right now at running back, we got Travis Etienne, Devon Achane, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. At wide receiver, Chris Olave, Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins, Mike Evans. And in my opinion, definitely too early to take a quarterback or wide receiver. So what are you thinking here?
Quarterback or tight end?
You're thinking quarterback or tight end?
Is that what you said? You said quarterback.
No, I said it's too early to take quarterback or tight end.
Oh, okay. You said quarterback and receiver, so I was just like, okay.
Oh, my bad.
I was thinking Olave, just because he does have a good ceiling. We already have Tyreek Hill. Bringing in Olave's floor is pretty solid. I mean, he's really the only good wide receiver on that team. I mean, there is some other pieces, but he's the only one who is it's very serviceable.
And outside of him, Rashid Shaheed, A.T. Perry, it's not a lot. Jawan Johnson's injured. Really, it feels like it's going to be a shot to Olave in the intermediate to deep part of the field, with Rashid Shaheed being a field stretcher, and then check downs to Kamara, at least while Jawan gets healthy. Do you guys have any faith in A.T. Perry? Obviously, this is a redraft. We're not taking him, but
I kind of wish the dynasty made some room on my roster.
He's like one of these things does not belong here. He's the bigger boy. There's not another player on the team other than Jawan Johnson that has that size. So he could be a red zone threat. I do think that he's worth, picking him up on the cheap right now in Dynasty. Just curious to hear you guys take. Mason, you agree that you said Olave? We're locking that in.
I mean, with A.T. Perry, I do think his value is a little more down just because there's not really a lot of competition. I mean, it could be next year, he's completely worthless. That could honestly be the case. But, if you can shoot a 4th-round pick for A.T. Perry right now in Dynasty, I think that's worth a shot.
Yeah, even a 3rd, I would send that for. It feels a little bit more dependent, based on need, which is never the ideal situation for Dynasty, but realistically, they need some help there. So right now on the board, after Chris Olave, Travis Etienne went, Devon Achane, Josh Allen, Brandon Ayuk. Right around the turn, beginning round 3, Isaiah Pacheco, Derrick Henry, Travis Kelce, Stephon Diggs. On the board right now, and again, in my opinion, 3rd round still too early for me to really jump on quarterback with all the depth there is there. Tight end is a different situation. Tight end, you only have really a solid 5 top guys. Then there's, Kyle Pitts, George Kittle, Evan Ingram, and I would settle for any of those 3. After that, basically punting towards the 8th, 9th round. So right now, Trey McBride, Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid on the board. Mason, I hope you agree that this is too early to take a tight end.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, maybe you could make an argument for McBride, but I think that I'd rather wait until maybe later rounds, get Ingram, Njoku, or somebody like that. And a wide receiver here, I'm thinking another wide receiver and just going heavy. Josh
Yeah.
Jacobs is the only running back I'm really thinking of, but
Completely agreed.
I'm not sure if I necessarily am going to entirely trust drafting him here just because they did bring in Marshawn Lloyd, who I do think will feed into Josh Jacobs' touches a little bit, and I do think it's going to
Right.
be a more passing offense as well, which Jacobs is a good receiving back, but and even AJ Dillon, I've heard a lot of reports that he's looking good so far. So I'm not putting, all eggs in the basket on Josh Jacobs. He still should have a good season, but I'm not confident enough to necessarily take him in the third always. Starting to move a little more off of him.
So at wide receiver, then we got Nico Collins, Mike Evans, Debo Samuel, DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle. If we didn't take Tyreek Hill, then I would smash Jalen Waddle in this position. I'm comfortable taking him anywhere in the third, given that we have two guys. Chris Olave is a little bit less consistent, but Tyreek Hill is going to put up numbers for you week to week. I'd personally go Nico Collins here, shoot for the upside in the first flex position. And when he does hit, you know that you could potentially win your week. Mike Evans, I think, is a safer pick. What do you think, Mason?
I'd be more leaning towards Mike Evans.
Mike Evans is a safer pick. Olave is inconsistent. So,
yeah. I mean, I just they didn't bring in. I don't believe they brought in anyone to really. Yeah, I mean Jalen McMillan they did draft, but
yeah, Jalen McMillan in the third. No, late second even, I believe.
No, I think he was third.
Was it third? Late third? Yeah, and then Bucky yeah. Okay.
I would say Mike Evans.
As a Niners fan, we're coming up on a minute. We might have to drink here soon. Between Mike Evans, Nico Collins, definitely leaning Mike Evans. You don't see any of the upside there with Nico?
I do. I'm not as high up on Nico this season. I think long term the value's there, but I just think Stephon Diggs is going to feed a lot into it. And then Dalton Schultz as well, and then Tank Dell. There's too many mouths to feed, and there could be a lot more running back game going there this year with Joe Mixon as well.
I'm not ready for you commenters to make our pick quite yet. I'm sure it'll come along. We be talking here, but we're locking in Mike Evans for our third. Get a little bit more consistency there. With our luck, this will be his first year in his career under 1,000. All right. After Mike Evans goes DJ Moore and Josh Jacobs. Curious to see where you guys go here.
Yeah. So I definitely am not reaching for a running back here. Wide receiver seems the obvious choice. I don't hate Jalen Hurts, but I have some other quarterbacks in mind as well. Yeah, to me, I'd consider Jalen Hurts here, but I really Nico, Debo, Waddle. I'd probably even remove Debo from that and say Nico, Waddle, or Hurts.
Yeah, I would think. I don't know. In Dynasty, I love Nico here, but they're not in this moment. But I would take. I think Nico, but I don't know. But yeah, I think I'm going Waddle here. I think I got to go Waddle. With Stephon Diggs coming in this year, there's just too much. This year, I'm just not as confident on Nico. I'm not selling him in any leagues, but I'm just not confident in his production this year. And it's okay if he has nothing. If he doesn't finish like he did last year, in my opinion.
Where I would disagree there, I just feel like Waddle is certainly he's a guaranteed 2, but outside of injury, he has no chance to be the wide receiver 1 for my. I don't know how much Diggs has left in the tank, but I feel like Tyreek Hill is probably going to produce more than Diggs and Tank Dell combined. Maybe a little bit of a spicy take there, but he was the number 1 wide receiver or number 2 off the board. To me, I think Nico Collins gives you a higher ceiling with a similar floor.
I mean, I have Nico Collins too, so this is this is tough. But I have some shares of Waddle too.
It all comes down to Evans' dynasty roster.
I know, no, but no, they're both in very. very different spots too. Like I just love the offense in Miami. And Stroud, yes, he proved to be great year one, but it's just not as safe to me as Waddle right now. So I'd rather go with the safety and security, especially since we have Marvin Harrison, who's a rookie as a wide receiver one. So let's get a little bit more security with something that didn't bring a big name into the picture.
You're forgetting about Odell Beckham Jr.
Is he practicing? I don't even think he's practicing.
I think he's on the PUP.
Yeah, so okay.
Malik Washington, I think, is more likely if anybody's going to take any receiving share.
I love me some Malik Washington. I hope OBJ just falls off and Malik Washington steps up into this yak role that he can demolish in.
The other thing I would say as far as the Miami versus Houston is, Joe Mixon was not efficient. He did produce, but he's been less and less efficient every year. Mostert was extremely efficient, and Achane was historically efficient. I would certainly think that backfield is more likely to take away some of the touchdowns in the offense versus Joe Mixon, who he's going to get inside the 5. I feel like that's where he's going to score the vast majority of his fantasy points. They had to throw it a lot last year. Their O-line was not good. It could be better. But also, I think I'm taking C.J. Stroud over Tua as a quarterback that can deliver for multiple receivers. Waddle did have that down year. I do expect him to bounce back, but I see an easier path to wide receiver 1 for Nico than I do Waddle. The Waddle's almost a guarantee, at least.
I agree with the easier path to wide receiver 1. I'm just looking for more security here at this point, but I mean, I'm happy with Nico as well. So I will if you're gonna dig your heels in Nico.
We have passed 30 seconds. It is no longer up to you guys. We are pausing the draft. If you're out there, comment who you think these guys should take. We've seen some comments from Nick Mullick. We got Blake Taylor Golf commented CD in the first. Completely agreed. It's insane. Responded out there. Oh, who do we got? Jalen Waddle all day, not even debate from Nicholas Mullick. Sorry. And then anybody else? 5, 4.
Booting you from the room, 3. Nicholas. It was nice having you here.
Love it. I love it. Let's go. Honestly, Waddle is who I would have taken as well. I love Jalen Waddle. I think that last year was not him. He was incredibly injured, missed 3 full games, and then also had another 3 games where he was playing under 60% snaps. He hadn't played under 60% snaps in that many games in the rest of his time in the NFL. The other 2 seasons, it was only 5 games under 60% snaps. So go and get yourself some Jalen Waddle. This is probably the lowest his ADP will be, especially considering Tyreek will move on.
So just to respond before we get into our pick, Nicholas, I got to respond to that comment. Nico was the wide receiver 1 last year. He was wide receiver 12 in PPR, 9 in half PPR. Tank coming off the injury, there's no guarantee he's wide receiver 3 there. To me, he's the front runner for wide receiver 1. And I would certainly take him over Diggs in redraft and dynasty. But
when you say wide receiver 1, you're saying the wide receiver can finish a top 12 wide receiver from the Texans.
Be the top receiver for the Texans and be a top 12 receiver in fantasy.
So
top 12. Okay, I just want to make sure a top 12 wide receiver rather than the wide receiver 1.
No, not the one, but a one. So here we are. Again, I feel like we're in a similar situation. We can't take McBride. I don't think. I want a super Cardinal stack. Lamar is sitting there, but we have Cooper Kupp, Devonta Smith, James Cook would be the guys I would really think about here. And if I really wanted to stretch for tight end, maybe Kincaid or Andrews, but I like the other guys I mentioned better. What are you thinking, Evan?
I'm thinking that I absolutely hate this spot because, I don't really like Cooper Kupp. I have Devonta Smith, but I don't really know what to think. Another big name added to that offense as well with Saquon. I could shake things up for him. And he was kind of fringe as well. Like he had some fringe games. He finished great, finished strong, but he makes me nervous too. I don't like Trey McBride either. So I don't know. I hate the spot a lot. And James Cook would probably be a nice safe play, but I really, yeah, James Cook isn't terrible. Lamar, I would take a QB here. I would actually be okay with taking a QB here.
I like James Cook in general. I think I own him on 5 of 6 dynasty teams, but I do in a redraft spot. I do like some of the running backs that we're likely to be able to get in the next 2 rounds, probably just as much. Lamar scares me just because he had such a good year last year, and it really didn't do much for you fantasy wise. And there's a couple of quarterbacks again later on in the next few rounds that I think I prefer. To me, I'm looking at Cooper Kupp and Devonta Smith to really stack our wide receivers. It's tough between those two. I'm scared of Kupp on the bounce back. I do like Devonta. He's going to overtake A.J. Brown at some point. Not that it'll be this year, but I think I would lean Devonta.
I think Devontae is a phenomenal wide receiver 2 on a team, but I don't think he's ever going to overtake and become a wide receiver 1 for a team, if that makes sense. I guess I could go Klepp here if we want to do that. I really don't love it though. I really don't love it at all. Like now, I kind of if we had Nico, would you go CJ Stroud here for the stack?
No, it's too early for Stroud. I couldn't take Stroud this early. I wouldn't mind that stack, but it's too early for Stroud. He's overvalued this year.
Yeah, I'm unhappily agreeing taking Kupp.
All right, we'll take Kupp and drink as we do.
Yeah, I'm grumpy.
So me and Mason over here in our private chat talking about Cooper Kupp, Devonta Smith. Who would we go? There's a couple other names that are out there that are still available to us that we are considering. You guys went with Cooper Kupp. I'm on that side. Mason, though, you said that you are kind of off Cooper Kupp, and I do want you to talk about it a little bit.
I mean, I just think obviously Kupp's had a very disappointing season last year compared to what we're used to.
Randomly muted or whatever. Puka I think is really going to be the wide receiver 1 there. And then I mean, it could honestly switch to more running game this year. I mean, Kyron proved a lot. They brought in Blake Corum as well. I think there's a chance that they kind of more lean on them. Stafford is aging now. Those quarterbacks, they can play till they're older. Tom Brady proved that point, but I don't see Kupp getting enough to where I would necessarily want to take him in the 4th. I think because a lot of other guys there, like I think I would rather take Devonta Smith over Kupp just because. I mean, I just think that the one, Eagles are a way better team. 2, there's a lot of injury concerns in the offense of the Rams between Kupp and Stafford, and just they could be a lot more running based this year. Obviously, Saquon's there, but and Philly, but Philly's always shown to be, they've always ran the ball a good amount, so I'm not worried about that changing up too much. And then I would even argue maybe Zay Flowers, to be honest. I know that's a little outlandish of a pick, but
over Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, maybe. I know that's a little outside opinion, but he is more than likely he should be the wide receiver 1 there. I mean, Rashad Bateman's got good reports this offseason, but we know what Rashad Bateman can do, and it's not anything outstanding. Zay Flowers really should be. He showed a good first year, and I think he's just going to improve a lot more. That I think he could end up getting a lot more targets than Kupp.
I mean, the Rams as a whole, they passed the most to the wide receiver position of anyone in the NFL last year by over 3.5%. They threw the ball 71.7% of their total pass attempts to the wide receiver. After Puka and Cooper Kupp is Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, and who cares? So Tyler Higbee's down.
Colby Parker is going to do some things, though.
Listen, I was the earliest on Colby Parkinson to the point where all 3 of you guys were dunking on me for even considering it. So
He's a blocker.
I'm here for a late dynasty sleeper, which is what I was talking about at that point. Like probably tight end, probably like 15 to 20 range. I get the Devonta Smith argument there. I could see Devonta Smith, younger, wide receiver 2 on his team, not a ton after that, but there's much more to be discussed there between Saquon, Dallas Goddard, and Jalen Hurts' rushing ability compared to Stafford. I just think there's no world where if they continue, even if they drop off like a whole 6-7% from where they were last year, that Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua don't see each about a 25% target share in this offense. We are on the clock, though. We have talked a lot about their pick. I am personally between Devonta Smith and James Cook. I do think James Cook is going to be heavily leaned on. We're drinking right now. We give the pick up in 25 seconds.
I
James
would more
Cook.
say James Cook just because we have 3 wide receivers, and I do think James Cook's going to have a great season.
I would honestly agree.
Not, he had 2 weeks. One of them finished as RB3, one of them as RB2. I just think that.
Yeah, no, I do want to give y'all viewers a pick, but I am going to take James Cook here because we will find some wide receiver values in this draft in later rounds. Whereas the running back one, I am comfortable having that be James Cook. I don't know if I'm that comfortable with having these later round guys be our RB1. And I am very comfortable with some of these wide receivers, like George Pickens right now on the board, being our wide receiver 4. This is one of my.
The AI is right. They drafted Zay Flowers before Devonta.
Okay, yes, the AI did. You're very right, Mason.
Yeah, stupid.
Like Lamb went before McCaffrey and Jefferson went before Hill and Chase. But no, James Cook's great RB1 as our second flex position. George Pickens, this is one of my favorite spots to be able to draft him in. We don't have to rely on George Pickens, but we know that he is going to have some week winning weeks. I love getting Pickens as my 4. I haven't even looked through the rest of the picks, but I could safely say that Pickens would be my pick here.
Yeah, no, I honestly, the only other person I would kind of lean towards is maybe Kenneth Walker, just to get our second RB. Maybe even James Conner. That's really it. But having George Pickens as your wide receiver 1, or he's a wide receiver 1 on the Steelers, and having him as our flex guy, Pickens has so much room to just explode this season, just because there's not really any talent. I mean, Roman Wilson is there, but it might take him a while to get really adjusted to it. Yeah. I mean, Pickens finished as wide receiver 30 last year. There's no way that happens again. Deontay Johnson's gone. I mean, the only other real competition was Pat Freiermuth, and I don't still have full confidence in him.
Roman Wilson.
Yeah, I mean,
like Roman Wilson. It's
I said Roman Wilson. It might just take a while.
That's the first guy we talked about, and I like Roman Wilson as a person. I think that very admirable traits. Seems like a hard worker. I like all of that. And he fits into a system where they are going to need a slot wide receiver. However, Arthur Smith doesn't put 3 wide receivers on the field. And if it's going to be 2 wide receiver sets with 2 out wide, and your options are George Pickens or Van Jefferson, who are you throwing the ball to as Russell Wilson or Justin Fields? Like it's a clear choice.
That on Pickens finishing as wide receiver 30 as well last year, that was with abysmal quarterback play. I mean, Wilson's not the best, but he's going to do better. Or if Fields comes in, I can imagine they do much better than Kenny Pickett did last year.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw Fields support DJ Moore as a wide receiver 1. I don't think that Fields will support anything outside of his main target as a primary threat. But really quick before we make our pick in George Pickens, after our pick in James Cook in the 4th round went Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, Devonta Smith, CJ Stroud to end the 4th. Start the 5th, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Alvin Kamara, Tank Dell, and we just took George Pickens with the 505. 506 is Amari Cooper. After that, Keenan Allen, and now Evan and Lee are on the board. Let's see what y'all got.
Yeah, so we probably need to pivot away from wide receiver, having taken those in our last 3 picks. To me, it's not to go too chalky, but it's the top two guys on the board that I would really consider.
Yeah, that's
Kenneth
exactly
Walker
what I was going to say too.
and Kyle Pitts. Pitts is a risk, man, but you just feel like he does have that potential to be tight end 1. There's only a couple other tight ends left that I would be comfortable drafting. And again, I'm pretty confident in a lot of these running backs. A little further down is my running back 2, especially if we can get a handful of them. So yeah, I would go Pitts here.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Kenneth Walker as my choice for sure. He's just a more sure thing. Pitts, he wasn't like really like he's a great player. Showed a great potential depth with that first year. But if you watch like some film, like too, he just completely gets outplayed a lot, and it's not just Arthur Smith to blame for his lack of production there. He owns some accountability there as well. So I really think Kenneth Walker is a more valuable pick here with the running back position being more scarce, and I like risking it with the tight end more. So I like a lot of other options on the tight end board still.
So for me, Kenneth Walker, the concern is obviously injury number 1 and Zach Charbonnet. Plus, we've got an entirely new offense coming in, University of Washington. We're going to spread it out. We're going to try to get the wide receivers involved. Pitts, sure, every player has to have personal accountability. Beyond Arthur Smith being the problem, Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke were his quarterbacks. He's going to have Kirk Cousins and Penix, possibly if Cousins gets re-injured, but really Kirk Cousins is a guy who we've seen him really elevate tight ends. He did it in Washington with Jordan Reed, who was a very underrated tight end, and T.J. Hockenson had the best run of his career with Kirk Cousins. All due respect to T.J. Hockenson, I know you guys love him. He's not Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is a much more talented player. Outside of Brock Bowers, he is the most touted prospect as a tight end to come into the league. He showed it in his rookie year. He has not had the opportunity. The other thing that I really love about him is there's nobody else outside of Drake London. I know some people are liking Mooney as a sleeper. He's too inconsistent for me. I just think Kyle Pitts is going to be an absolute focal point of this offense, and it is going to be an offense that throws the ball with Kirk Cousins. He's not going to run. It's going to be Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. Those are going to be the 3 guys, and I want to own as much of this Atlanta offense this year as I can get. I'm still a little uncertain on the Seattle offense, what it's going to look like.
Interesting. I don't think I've heard anyone ever say, I want as much of this Atlanta offense as I can get.
Yeah,
I don't blame you. It is much more narrowed down now. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan, and Kirk Cousins is a statue. So he's not running the ball. He's not taking away anything from his other players. But it was just crazy to hear that in my ear right now.
They're going to be good, man. They're going to be good. And we don't know what Geno is going to look like. Charbonnet was drafted in the 2nd round for a reason. Who's the tight end behind? And I know Jonnu, thanks to Arthur Smith, did produce last year, but who's the tight end behind?
The depth chart is Charlie Warner, who's a blocking tight end mostly. He was on the Niners. And then Austin Stogner, who I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know who those guys are. Ross DeWelly.
Again, in my other argument, I think we're coming down and we're probably going to let the viewers choose again.
Yeah, I think we're going to let the viewers choose this one.
The running back.
I wasn't going to say anything. They made a great pick for you guys in the first round. So
yeah,
we are.
That's why they lead my way in the first round. Let's see if they lead my way again in the second. The second vote.
Lee, continue to make your argument that you're stating there, but in the meantime, viewers, go ahead, vote away. Let's see.
I just feel like some of the other running backs that may be
Thank you, Nicholas.
Hold on, come on, somebody else weigh in. We need some other people to weigh in.
No,
here.
he's just fine. You stay right there. And
We need some other opinions. Obviously, Nick thinks more along the lines of Evan. I mean, you've got David Montgomery, James Conner, Ramondre Stevenson. You've got Najee Harris. All these guys, Zamir White, Tajay Spears. All these guys I like more than if we don't get Ingram or Kittle after this, we're screwed at tight end.
Well, I feel like if we don't get Walker here, we're going to be in a position of having like 3 viable tight ends. Now we're in a position of potentially having 4, and I'd much rather have some depth at the running back position than a potentially more valuable tight end.
Well, Ingram's gone too.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much
Walker's on the board.
Or completely pumped.
Really quick, you guys have Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker at running back, Marvin Harrison, Jalen Waddle, and Cooper Kupp at wide receiver. Right now, Mason and I have Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave, Mike Evans, and George Pickens at wide receiver, and James Cook at running back. You guys are up with your 6th round pick. After Kenneth Walker went off at the 508, went Aaron Jones, James Conner, Anthony Richardson, Kyle Pitts. To start the 6th round was Terry McLaurin, Christian Kirk, DeAndre Swift, and Evan Ingram. You guys are up on the board. Talk it through.
I feel like you got to take George Kittle here and being you pass on. I was forced to pass on Pitts with the last pick.
Got to is such a strong word.
I feel like you have to. There's the teardrop. I mean, you're going to end up with, at best, a Jake Ferguson. David Njoku, I don't want. Jake Ferguson, I'm afraid of. And outside of those names, you're completely punted on the tight end position. You have no chance.
He's bringing up something that I know that Lee agrees with here. Anthony Richardson is way too early. What is AI doing? I know Lee is on that train. Not a big.
Listening. I mean, it's maybe around that turn is probably the earliest I would take him. There are some mock drafts I've seen him going as early as QB3, which is crazy to me, being at the limited time we saw him play. But the Russian quarterback cheat code, essentially. There is potential. I know there's a lot of fantasy analysts out there predicting he's the QB1. I would be surprised, but yeah, I mean it's all about shooting for the stars. In a 1 QB league, I guess I can see it. To me, in a super flex, I'm a little bit more hesitant because you do need production out of both. But if he's a total bust, you can probably stream him. That's
yeah. I mean, Kittle's fine here. I'm happy with Kittle. I do agree that there's a gigantic teardrop after Kittle, so I'm fine with Kittle here. We'll move forward with that. But I would, if this was me drafting personally, I'd still probably wait.
TJ Hawkinson's still on the board, by the way.
Yeah,
with one leg.
Right. It's going to be difficult for him to come back and just produce like that. Oh, one of my arguments went off the board. All right. So they take Kittle with the 605. After that goes T. Higgins and Rome Odunze. Mason and I are up on the board. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to start scrolling away from the teams. Let's get it up there. Okay. So on the board right now, we have Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray at quarterback. At running back, David Montgomery, Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Tony Pollard, Zamir White, and Raheem Mostert at running back. Wide receiver, we got Jordan Addison, Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed, Chris Godwin, Xavier Worthy, and Calvin Ridley. And then, honestly, no tight ends worth drafting in the 6th round. Right now, Brock Bowers, Njoku, Jake Ferguson leading the way. So we have 4 wide receivers on our team. I was messaging Mason in the midst of this, and I said, truthfully, if Higgins is still there, I would still be fine with going Higgins, even though we have our 4 wide receivers filling the spots. I just think that 6th round is insane value for Higgins.
Yeah, I mean, I would have agreed with that because even if we didn't really want Higgins, then we decide not to even play him at that point. draft him in the 6th. We could probably trade him at some point for somebody that was getting
Right.
drafted.
One of the 4 will
yeah.
blow up.
Yeah.
And but we're not trading our top guys here. But
Yeah.
like Tyreek, Chris Olave, probably untouchable. I'd be willing to trade away Mike Evans or George Pickens after a boom game. So the running backs on the board really is where we're looking at. I don't even want to consider these quarterbacks. Kyler Murray's the only one with rushing upside. It's just not who I'm looking for here. David Montgomery, Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Tony Pollard, Zamir White.
Yeah,
And
I would
Raheem
be
Mostert.
leaning more to Stevenson. Obviously he had a very fallback year last year, but that offense, which it still could not be the best. They did rely solely off of Ramondre Stevenson. He did have a lot of pressure on him. Zeke was also there, and Zeke did. Obviously Antonio Gibson was brought in instead. I don't think Antonio Gibson will feed into it as much as Zeke did last year. I just think Ramondre Stevenson had the ankle injury. He seems fine now. They extended him to 4 years. You don't extend a running back to 4 years if you don't plan on using him.
Right.
And
Right.
I
Even
mean,
if the money's up front, and to your point, Mason, that they brought in Antonio Gibson. Let's really quick, Lee and Evan, just a non-biased opinion.
Yep.
What do you think the majority, like the maximum amount of targets Antonio Gibson could get this year?
The season?
The season, over the course of the whole season.
I mean,
They're both checking their phones for stats.
Yeah.
I think at max 30, honestly, but I don't think even that. I think he's more going to sit towards like 20.
Right. I
targets.
mean, if Gibson got 3 per game, that would be 51 targets on the season.
He got phased out in Washington because of the fumbling, and Brian Robinson took the job.
I'll take a drink, but you guys have to chime in quicker.
I would say 55 is the minimum. He's had 59, 58, 52, and again, he's been phased out. Really, over the second half of the season before last and most of last season, he was really just a spell back. He's going to be a true third down back, and honestly, I could see him setting a career high in targets and having 60 to 65.
Yeah, so the reason I bring it up is Ezekiel Elliott had 65 targets last year at age 28. That's absolutely nuts. I do not see Gibson getting that amount of targets this year. I do think the Patriots can only go up, even though they brought in a rookie. And a lot of people have hope and think that it can only go up. But truly, it couldn't have gotten much worse than it did for the Patriots last year offensively. It was ugly. And I think that Ramondre Stevenson, at the bare minimum, will benefit from their team being in scoring position much more frequently. And I don't think that Gibson's going to get 65 targets like he did. I think Stevenson will jump back up in that range. So we did go Stevenson. Evan, I don't want to cut off your take if you had one there for the Gibson targets. Did you have one real quick?
No, I mean, I think that is attainable for him too. I don't. It's going to be interesting if it's Jacoby or May there. If there's May, there's going to be less checkdowns in my opinion. I think he's going to take more opportunities to try to run the ball as well. So it's TBD on that.
You said Jacoby, and I was like, Jacoby Myers has been off of the Patriots for some time, and I don't know why you're even bringing him up.
Because he's a coach. That's why he's bringing him up.
Yeah. If you're not on the YouTube, check out Mason on YouTube. Jacoby Myers enthusiast. I think this is like the 3rd or 4th week.
You're just trying to butter up Mason over here. You're just trying to butter him up for your next pick. Is that what it's going on?
So after Ramondre,
you love, he's just a guy. You love him.
After Ramondre Stevenson goes Joe Burrow, Rashee Rice, Jordan Addison, David Montgomery to end the 6th. To start the 7th, we have Jaden Reed, Chris Godwin, Xavier Worthy, Tony Pollard. Right now, we have Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love at QB, Najee Harris, Amir White, Raheem Mostert, Jonathan Brooks. I'm skipping over Nick Chubb. Even I love Nick Chubb more than any player, but not in the seventh. Nick.
You were speaking to him for a second. You were like, I love.
Nicholas, I know. I wasn't even
You were
looking at
speaking
any
to
of you.
him.
I'm looking at my.
Well, that wasn't the first time you've done that. I can tell.
You're gonna have to wait, brother. I love you, but wide receiver Calvin Ridley, which I do think is a great value in the seventh. Hollywood Brown, Lad McConkey, DeAndre Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, and then tight end Brock Bowers, Njoku, Jake Ferguson, Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinson. I immediately click back to the running backs.
I mean,
Mason-
honestly, my two choices here are between Zamir White and Dak Prescott, which I very, very rarely draft Dak. But
you talked so much shit on
I
Dak
know,
last year.
so much crap about Dak.
Wild.
But I mean, QB3 last year, I mean, even the season before where he threw a ton of interceptions, he still had, he only had, week 1, he did pretty bad. And then week 18, he also did bad as well. But the rest of the games he played, Dak, his worst finish was QB 18. And most of them, he was in top 10 out of, and I just think this year too, he's got a lot to prove. It's a contract year. Dak's going to try to make that money. I think that just the running game
not that many people available. There's CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, who can take a step up from what he did last year, or at least be more consistent. But as much as I do think Ramondre Stevenson can take a step up, I don't think that he is so much of a step up that we don't need to ensure our RB3 here.
Yeah,
to me, I would take.
But also Dak last year, you're talking about who he has to work with this year. He had the same guys last year finish as QB3, and the running game got worse. It's worse this year. There's no
the running game did get worse, but Pollard was a consistent dump off, even though he wasn't consistent or efficient. I personally, upside shot, I take Zamir White or Raheem Mostert, banking on continuing his red zone usage, or Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks is going to step up into a role when he's fully healthy, going to take at least, oh shit. All right, we ran out of time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't want Mostert just because, I mean, I believe he's going to be 33 at some point this season. Pause the draft, by the way.
No, I gotcha.
Nick, you're up.
I believe that
I took anyone here, it would have been Zamir White. I know I'm a little bit higher than the consensus on Zamir, but I don't believe in the Alexander Madison at all. I know AP, Antonio Pierce, the head coach, really wants to run the ball, and they're going to run a ton of 12 personnel sets on top of bringing in, Powers Johnson for the interior line. I think that is just going to go a long way.
I mean, I don't know. It's just I do like Zamir White just because what he did do when Antonio Pierce took over as interim coach, and he produced a lot. And it's the only opportunity he really got, and he did prove himself. That's who I probably would have gone if we went RB. Just like I said, Mostert, aging guy. They did bring in Jalen Wright as well. I think there's just Mostert can't go up from where he was last year. There's no way that he finishes as RB5 again. I just don't see it with HM if he's healthy all season and Wright gets some touches.
That's fine, but I brought up a bunch of other guys too. Samir would have been cool. I would have loved Jonathan Brooks. Honestly, I would have taken Zach Moss over Dak Prescott, but the viewers have weighed in. We take Dak Prescott. It's a mock draft. We'll see where this leads us. But right now, after Dak Prescott goes Najee Harris, Brock Bowers. You guys are up with the 708.
So we'll just make sure that Evan's in agreement. But this
we've
is
talked about this. We've talked about this.
Kyler Murray right here, getting the stack with Marvin Harrison. It's just a no-brainer. If I can get Marvin Harrison early in the draft, I absolutely love getting Kyler Murray here in the 7th round.
Interesting. You got the Marvin Harrison Kyler stack. You do have 2 1-seat positions in the top 7 rounds. So 2 RBs, 3 wide receivers, and then 1 tight end, 1 QB. We went with a little bit different of an approach. But here after Kyler Murray goes Calvin Ridley, Zamir White, David Njoku, Raheem Mostert, To start the 8th, Jonathan Brooks, Hollywood Brown, Jake Ferguson, Jordan Love. Back up to the 805. What do you guys got?
So, yeah, this is definitely a tougher spot. We can certainly go wide receiver or running back. We're not drafting another onesie position until the very end, if at all. To me, I don't want any parts of Chubb. I don't want any parts of Hopkins this year. Lad McConkey's interesting. I know you're a Chargers fan down there, Evan.
That's my guy right there. That's who we're picking. If you allow.
The rookie drafter wants a rookie. That's very
big. I am the drafter of rookies.
He would be our wide receiver 4, but he would be our second rookie wide receiver. I do feel like we're a little weaker at the running back position right here, and there are some wide receivers that we could probably get on the next round that I like just as much as Ladd. I don't love Javonte either, but you guys know, anybody that's been listening, the guy that jumps out at me, the guy that I would draft would be Zach Moss. I love the potential in the Cincinnati offense. I think he's going to be just as efficient, if not more efficient, than Joe Mixon was, and we saw what Joe Mixon did last year. What did he finish? RB8, RB6? He was somewhere in that top 10, and he looked slow. He didn't look like himself. Zach Moss looked phenomenal when he got the run as the starting running back for the Colts. I would also consider Jaylen Warren, as far as talking about running backs with upside. I'd really want to get my running back 3 here because I'm between the injuries and Charbonnet, I'm not that confident in why did I blank? In Kenneth Walker. I love Breece Hall, but there's definitely a little bit of an injury history there. I feel like we need more depth at running back here. Our top 3 wide receivers, between Marvin Harrison, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, I feel really strong that at least 2 of those are going to be starters every week. So I just think it's more important at this point in the draft to get a running back. And to me, I like Jaylen Warren, but he's going to be in more of a timeshare. Najee's going to get the goal line work. And at this point, when I'm drafting a running back, if you're not catching 65, 70 balls, I want the guy that's going to get the goal line work. Zach Moss in a very good offense, behind an improved offensive line. I could 10-plus touchdowns, to me, is very, very attainable for Zach Moss. He's not a bad pass catcher. He showed some of that last year. He had never shown before. Chase Brown, I just don't see it. He's a horrible pass blocker, which makes it – that's an issue if you're going to be a third down back. He was explosive on 3 plays last year, and people have gone crazy, where Zach Moss was a top 10 running back for the first 4 or 5 games of the year, at least like 80% of those where he was the starter. I'm smashing.
People went crazy for those 3 plays because that was the only 3 plays he was allowed to touch the ball pretty much. So
why couldn't he get on the field?
Because there was his first year playing, and there's a very solidified back there before.
But it wasn't even that. It was what Travion Williams was playing in front of him towards the end of the year on third downs. That's my concern. If he had gotten more third down work at the end of the year and we had really solved that piece of his game, I would be more.
Either way, I don't want to draft a running back here. I want Lad fucking McConkey. Oh, sorry, a little early for the radio. But
I'm right now.
I mean, the only thing the only argument against Lad here.
We don't have to wait for the 30 seconds. Let's let Nick decide. Nick, also, just to let you know, you don't have to pick one of the 2 players or 3 players we're talking about. You can go off script. You just can't be way off the board.
You guys are letting that happen?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
I like it. Okay.
Nick hasn't treated me wrong yet.
Well, it's not likewise here with this Prescott.
Yeah.
What does he say?
I mean, the only argument against Lad right now is if Ayuk actually does come to the Chargers. If they actually get a big name wide receiver to come to the Chargers, that's the only thing that would be like, okay, shoot, we messed up here.
He's not going anywhere. Don't you put that? Don't you say that?
I hope not too, because I believe in Lad and I want Lad to become our future. So
it's a run first offense, and he's going to be behind Josh Palmer.
Hey, I want to say something too. I saw a report that Harbaugh is very happy with Quentin Johnston as well.
I'm crying inside because I was really hoping Moss would slip to us, especially after making a whole argument of how we need to reinforce our RB3 and Ramondre Steve. And now he's off the board, and I don't even want any of these guys as our RB3, to be honest. So Mason, we are on the board now. After Zach Moss goes Brock Purdy, Nick Chubb. Available to us at quarterback, we got Caleb Williams, Tua, Goff, Jaden Daniels,
We
Justin
have Dak
Herbert.
Prescott. We're not taking a quarterback.
I'm just speaking it to the people who are listening so they know what's on the board, Mason. Javonte Williams, Austin Eckler, Jalen Warren, Devin Singletary at running back. At wide receiver, we got McConkey, DeAndre Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, Ryan Thomas, JSN, Keon Coleman. And at tight end, Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinson. Realistically, we've worked ourselves into a hole. I feel like we have to either take the tier. There's a big old tier gap after Goddard, in my opinion, at tight end. The other positions, I would love to, take a McConkey just for the hell of it and watch the upside grow. But I do think that we have to go with Dallas Goedert here.
I'm more leaning towards we need an RB.
So after Goddard, who are you comfortable having at tight end? We pass on Goddard is full punt.
I mean, TJ Hawkinson when he comes back, but who knows? Who knows when or if that will happen.
Every team after us does have a tight end. So ordinarily, this is where you can view the draft board, make some decisions, and make an educated decision. Most real life people are not going to draft their tight end 2 in round 8. However, it's a computer, and I feel like they will. So if to talk it out though, if you were to go running back, who are you thinking?
The two that I see are Eckler or Warren, and I know a lot of people are off of Eckler, but he did suffer that, I believe it was a high ankle sprain. He still, when he came back, obviously he had some weeks where it wasn't very good, but that Chargers was just, they were kind of bad last season. I mean, in general. Sorry, Evan, but with Herbert being hurt, playing through a broken
Keenan
finger
was out for a while. No Mike Williams. We were
Mike
beat
Williams
up.
was obviously out. I mean, there was just that offense wasn't what
Brandon
it was.
Staley.
And I mean, when you look at Eckler, I mean, Brian Robinson, he has proven he can be a good receiving back. But Eckler definitely is a lot better if Eckler is healthy. And you got rookie Jaden Daniels on there who will probably be, starting week 1. Maybe Mariota does start at the beginning. That could happen. But either way, whoever is starting, I think is going to use the check down back a lot. And Eckler just is that guy. Brian Robinson is more going to be that, kind of – he could take away some red zone touches. Eckler might not have those, the big touchdown numbers he had, but he still, even though he missed 3 games, was never 100% last year, still finished as wide receiver running back number 26. And I don't think he can get worse than that. I think Eckler is definitely getting slept on a lot this year. And honestly, Brian Robinson, a big problem with him over his 2 years is
Mason,
fumbling.
we got to cut it off here. We're at 1 minute. We need your final decision, and I'll make my final decision. We'll talk about it.
I'm going to say Eckler. I've been talking him up. I'm going to say Eckler.
I would take Javonte with pure volume over him. I'd take Jalen Warren over efficiency, and Devin Singletary again for volume. Anybody but
Williams is kind of maybe fighting for a roster spot. So
I disagree with that fully. Let's go Jalen Warren right now. Nick, we love you. You've been making a lot of solid picks. I did not want Dak, and I'm not letting another one happen right now. So we are
Warren
going
would have
to
been my second RB choice.
Okay, solid. Warren's been incredibly efficient. They intentionally did not extend Warren or Najee because they're saying, let's let the best man win. And if they're good enough, we are going to continue we'll sign them for years to come. But we go Jalen Warren, Javonte Williams next off the board, Caleb Williams, Lad McConkey, DeAndre Hopkins to round it out. I am almost missing my mark. We are at the hour mark. Thank you, everybody in Atlanta for listening. Make sure to check out the YouTube. We got the last 9 through 14 rounds to come. Make sure follow us on YouTube, on our socials. If you check out the YouTube, it's all there for you. We will post the results of this mock draft for you to vote on which team had the best team.
Go dog.
After DeAndre Hopkins at the 8-12, Austin Eckler started off the 9th round. After him goes Keon Coleman, Brian Thomas, and JSN. We are back on the board right now to recap the teams that we all have. Mason and I have Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave, Mike Evans, and George Pickens at wide receiver. James Cook, Ramondre Stevenson, and Jalen Warren at running back, and Dak Prescott at quarterback. No tight end yet. Lee and Evan have Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, and Zach Moss at running back. Marvin Harrison, Jalen Waddle, and Cooper Kupp at wide receiver. And George Kittle and Kyler Murray at tight end and quarterback. Mason and I are back up on the clock with the 9:05.
I would say Goddard or Tajay. Those are my two options. And I think, reinforcing the running back room, I'm one of those people in redraft. If I don't get the top 5 tight ends, I'm really okay with just streaming tight ends all year. That's just more how I play. I don't know if that's necessarily how you are. That's just how I kind of believe to play in tight ends.
That's funny because when I tried doing that in the last mock draft, you guys all gave me crap for it.
I mean, because Noah Fant is still there in the later rounds. So,
This is why I can't leave it up to the later rounds. I'm not willing to have Noah Fant as a streamer. Tight end's one of the hardest positions to decide a streamer. They're much less reliant on their matchup in comparison to the need for targets. A lot of times the streaming tight ends are the guys who had a prominent wide receiver go down. Quarterback is where I prefer to stream. That is an easy matchup to me. The fantasy footballers have said that there's been 40 QB1s each year for the last 3 years. That's insane. That's 8 more than the NFL has. That's just saying when a quarterback goes down, it's easy to plug them in if they have a good matchup. Right now, best player on the board, in my opinion, by far is Deontay Johnson. I think we're beyond the point where any of these running backs make a significant difference. I think Devin Singletary would be the only guy that gets enough volume, and even that's slightly questionable despite the contract they just gave him. I would personally go Devin Singletary or Deontay Johnson. Dallas Goedert, I like a lot, but realistically, it's just too many mouths to feed in that offense. He's basically a streamer.
No, yeah, I mean Deontay is, he should be the wide receiver one at least for most of the season, unless Leggett can, really evolve.
We're drinking.
But yeah, all right. I mean, I don't like necessarily loading up on a 5th wide receiver necessarily, but Deontay is, give him
That's
4 or
on the
5
board.
weeks. Yeah, let's go Deontay. Just, after 4 or 5 weeks, he might be a guy that we're just like, all right, let's trade him out for a guy that was drafted a round or 2 earlier. The value for Deontay here is very solid, and it's a non-position of need. Our wide receivers are solid. Now if we shouldn't really even draft a wide receiver, maybe until the last round, but
I agree with that fully, but I will take a little bit of depth. I don't want to talk over your guys' pick anymore, though. Go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, I love the Deontay Johnson pick. That's something me and you have agreed on, Dan. He would have been definitely the wide receiver I would have been stumping for here. But I want to plant my flag firmly somewhere, and it's in the Tajay Spears stock this year. He was on the field more than Derrick Henry last year. Tony Pollard lost goal line carries to Rico freaking Dowdle, and somehow Tony Pollard is going 2 rounds in front of Tajay Spears. I don't care about the money. Teams make mistakes with the money. Sometimes teams have expensive insurance policies. Tajay Spears is the running back 1A in that Tennessee offense. He's a better pass catcher than Tony Pollard. He's a better running back at this point in his career. Tajay Spears is going to get plenty of work. This should be a better offense. They've invested heavily in the offensive line. I would absolutely draft Tajay Spears here if it's my choice.
He is the best player available in my opinion. I do think that we need wide receiver here. So a part of me wants to even take a shot on like a Jameson Williams, just because the reports on him have been making me insanely nervous for some reason. Like he's just
I'm literally right now writing a Jameson Williams write up for the upcoming season.
This man is
reports are crazy.
They are crazy. Apparently, he's had like an absolute monstrous offseason. He's out there now in training camp running routes, throwing up mid route, and still catching touchdowns in that same route. So I don't understand what's going on over there, but I'm very curious, and I'm just seeing him just beat guys a lot. But Cortland Sutton would be the other guy I'm looking at. I'm happy with Spears though. I think he's the best player available. I'm good with it.
I think we'll have a decent choice at wide receiver on the way back. And at this point in the draft, we're balanced enough that we can go whatever direction that we feel.
Exactly. And that's why that the benefit of exactly why I wanted to get Walker up there too is now we have 4 solid running backs, 4 solid core running backs. So that's amazing for us. Let's do it.
All right, so after Tajay goes Dallas Goedert, Tua Tagovailoa, Jameson Williams, T.J. Hawkinson. To start off the 10th goes Trey Benson, Jaden Daniels, one of my favorite values in drafts, Dalton Schultz, Jared Goff. They are back up with the 10:05. And really quick, before you guys jump into your pick, I just wanted to throw this up there. Matt Harmon's reception perception, Deontay Johnson. Here's his routes run. Green. He's above average in every single route that he's run. This is the left side of the board here. Every route that he runs, he has an above average success rate. Down here, you can see his percentile versus different kinds of coverages. 81st percentile versus man, 82nd versus zone, and 85th versus press. Later in the article, I won't give too much of his stuff away, but go subscribe to him. He has incredible content. Deontay Johnson, a perfect ad for the Panthers because they had the last rated separation group across all wide receiver cores in the NFL. They can't get open. Deontay can. Perfect fit for the system. Just wanted to throw that in there real quick. Do love your Tajay Spears pick. You guys are up with the 10:05.
All right. So regardless of what I just said on the previous pick, again, beyond the first part, the second part is where I really ring true is that best available is still where I want to go. To me, Brian Robinson and even Gus Edwards are by far the better value. I heard you say Cortland Sutton on the last pick.
Yeah.
The man scored 10 touchdowns last year. 10.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was still wide receiver 35. Yep. Where do you have to go up? Touchdown regression is certainly almost a guarantee. How can you improve on a 10 touchdown season where you were wide receiver 35? Go ahead.
Really quick.
How can you? Because you have the offensive rookie of the year.
Exactly.
All right.
Bro, Knicks, baby. Let's go, Evan. Let's go.
That is a fun take, but really quick, aside from the wide receiver 35 finish, in his last 3 games, he did not play 50%. One of them he played 13%. The other he entirely missed. And the last game, 46% with 1 reception for 2 yards. Through week 15, when he got injured and was taken out, he was wide receiver 19. Just clearing that up. Wide receiver 35 sounds much worse. I do agree that there's not a lot of upside for Cortland Sutton in this offense. But I do think that the numbers are a little bit misleading with wide receiver 35.
I mean, it was all touchdown dependent, and touchdown is the most volatile stat for
sure.
If you need to get another RB, I love having RBs too. So I'm happy with this. Not happy, but I'm okay with this, I guess. But okay, I'm not doing Brian Robinson though. Eckler's there. I think he's the guy. I think Gus Edwards could be the guy, and it has a very, very good potential of being the guy for the Chargers too. So I see him having even potentially like 8 to 10 touchdowns this year, which could be huge. So he's I'm okay with Gus Edwards if that's the pick.
So
If you'll meet with me on compromise, I'm willing to compromise and go RB, even though I want to go wide receiver. But it's gotta be Gus Edwards, not Brian Robinson.
So I don't like it. I probably will to avoid Nick again going against me. But I do want to plant my flag in one other spot. What round did Austin Eckler go? It was just last round. Austin Eckler should not be drafted in front of Brian Robinson. Austin Eckler is a 29-year-old running back who looks slow and done, who came in on a minimal deal. Brian Robinson is the RB1 in Washington. I will bet everything I own on it. He's going to have more rushing. There's not going to be enough difference in the passing game for Austin Eckler to overcome Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson gets all the goal line work.
Austin Eckler's deal?
Do what?
You said he got a league minimum deal?
Yeah, pretty much.
It wasn't league minimum, but it was not good. I
It was,
remember
it
that.
was no money. I mean, there's a 1-year deal essentially.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Oh well, you guys are over your time, so
Whoa! I didn't even catch it that time.
We'll let Nick
Well,
make
you guys also took a minute of it talking about Deontay Johnson. So
Be quicker is all I have to say.
As much as I'm convicted on the Zach Moss and Tajay Spears, I'm the most convicted, and it is my team. I follow the closest. Brian Robinson will have a better season than Austin Eckler. I would bet any amount of money that anybody wants to bet.
will you bet that he has a better season than Gus Edwards?
Huh? Then Gus Edwards?
Yeah.
That's a little more volatile, but I would take a bet on it.
All right, so Brian Robinson is the pick. I will say me and Mason were talking, and if Brian Robinson was there, that was going to be our pick. We'll have to talk it through a little bit more here. After Brian Robinson goes Cortland Sutton and Gus Edwards. We are back on the board, Mason, with the 10:08. Right now at quarterback, we already got ours, but Justin Herbert, Lawrence, really the only guys, even if we didn't have Dak, would be considered. Zeke, Blake Corum, Chase Brown, Jerome Ford, Zach Charbonnet at running back. At wide receiver, Romeo Doubs, Curtis Samuel, Tyler Lockett. And at tight end, Cole Kmet, Pat Freiermuth. For me, it's between two players right now. It is Pat Freiermuth, or I would say Jerome Ford, personally. Because I would be willing to start him at the beginning part of the season and then move on after, Nick Chubb makes his return.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up Jerome Ford as well. I mean, even when Chubb was playing, if you look early on in the season, Ford did have week 2, he was RB6, week 3, RB7.
Week 2 is when Chubb went down.
Week 2, okay. Well, I mean,
yeah.
I think Ford he's going to have some good numbers, and I think even when Chubb is back, they're going to slowly work him in because that injury was serious.
Agreed.
And I think
there's no way they just rush him back in because he's on his last year of his deal. They value him as a person. There's no reason why they gave him the restructured contract with all the incentives. So many other teams would have said, fuck off, go find what you can. We're paying you what we said.
Yeah, and I mean, Chubb has carried your franchise for years. They
right.
like him. Yeah,
100%.
But yeah, I get you saying you said Freiermuth for tight end. I get that, but the teams in front of us probably won't go tight end. I mean, it's the
AI. It's AI, man.
Yeah.
The 10th round, they will absolutely double down at tight end.
Yeah, but just looking at ADP, there's a lot of players in front of Freiermuth that I think it will come back
That's
to
true.
us. So I would more lean towards Jerome Ford, and I do like him. Say week 2 or 3. Also, I always try to look at trade value as well, and I would say
It's a risky business, but I'm about it enough to lock it in. Let's go Jerome Ford here.
I think
play
he's
the game.
Ford, I think, has a good floor. I mean, he's not always going to put up elite numbers, but just on that offense, I think as long as he is a starter, he is going to get good. Because Deshaun Watson is probably, not going to do great again. Okay, yeah, all right. Well, yeah, we don't even talk about it. Take Pat Freiermuth. We probably got Steelers' number 1 and number 2 target, and
We had to, right?
yeah, Wilson is he should provide enough. There's good reports out of Frymouth, although I said earlier I'm not super confident in him. Taking him this late in the 11th round, I like it.
Wild.
All right. So I feel great about our running back situation now. We went running back first. Between Brees, K9, Zach Moss, Tajay Spears, Brian Robinson, we're probably starting 3 running backs every week. And we're solid. We've got a solid top 2 guys, no matter what the combination. Obviously, we need to go wide receiver here. Tyler Lockett's at the top of the board. I don't love him this year. There is some value this late. I don't like Jacoby Myers.
Nope.
You're a hater.
Jacoby Myers. I don't mind taking a shot here on Xavier Legette because I do think Bryce Young is going to be greatly improved with Dave Canales there. And beyond Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, he may just get carried off the field. He's an old guy. He did great last year early. He fell way off, especially later in the year. I could see Xavier Legette being the number 2 target in the offense.
Yeah, I mean, anybody at this round is kind of a flyer guy. I hate having a flyer guy as our wide receiver four, to be honest. But being that it could be somebody that turns into the wide receiver 1 for that team, I am happy with it, and I'm definitely he's the only option for me. I would not take Tyler Lockett or I guess one could make an argument for Jacoby, but I would not accept it.
One could make an argument,
I know one person who could make an argument, but that's about it.
I mean, he finished as what, wide receiver 24 last year? I mean, who else did they bring in for competition?
Brock Bowers.
Rookie tight end, not too
drafted
bad.
in the first
They
round.
bring somebody else in too. Who else did they bring in?
Michael Gallup, but he just retired. But still.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was made active again today.
Yeah,
Sleeper made him active again today. I don't know what's happening. Maybe he did.
All right, so we're back on the clock very quickly. We did have Chase Brown go after our pick. Tyler Lockett went. The aforementioned Jacoby Myers. Trevor Lawrence was picked. Zach Charbonnet. I wouldn't have minded that stack if we weren't so solid at depth with running back. Luke Musgrave, Jerry Jeudy, and Jalen Wright. So we're back on the clock. And again, I know we disagreed on this, Evan, but I love the flyer on the potential wide receiver 1 for Justin Herbert. I'm all in on Josh Palmer as my wide receiver this late. I feel like given his limited opportunities, when Allen and Mike Williams are both off the field, I want to say I'm maybe a little off, but I think he averaged around 10.5 fantasy points a game. I know it was double digits, so he would be my guy here. I see Rashid Shaheed there, but I'd much rather invest in an offense in the potential wide receiver 1 or 2 for Justin Herbert over the wide receiver 2 for Derek Carr.
Yeah, no, I don't see Josh Palmer as the wide receiver 1 potential at all. And that's coming from a Chargers fan and somebody who had Josh Palmer and sold him off of this dynasty team. So I like Rashid here. He'd probably be my pick. I also like Gabe Davis. Take a shot on Gabe Davis here. Troy Franklin, I would take a shot on him. These guys are just flyers. Let's just start taking some flyers. Some of these guys are going to hit.
I just don't see any of those guys you mentioned don't have that wide receiver 1 potential. I mean, if we're talking flyers, and I know you don't like Josh Palmer. You probably started on the wrong week.
Especially Bo Nix starts. Troy Franklin does have wide receiver 1 potential for his team. Not like top 12.
I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah.
He was a
And
4th
Gabe
round
Davis,
rookie.
Worried for your
Gabe
like
Davis was
mental
phenomenal with his
well-being.
opportunity. With his opportunity in Buffalo, he was phenomenal. And there's going to be deep ball targets in Jacksonville. I do think that Brian Thomas is the guy there. But
And not to mention Christian Kirk is going to be the underneath guy, Evan Ingram. Both those guys are going to have more target share than Gabe. Gabe is going to continue to be what Gabe has been, which is in best ball, he will win you 3 weeks out of the season.
Right.
And in redraft, he will lose you 8 weeks out of the season.
Yep.
yeah. I guess we're going Rashid. Or you're planting your flag on Josh Palmer, and I'll plant my flag somewhere. I really don't know yet.
I mean, I really like Palmer quite a bit more than Shaheed.
Mm.
I'm okay letting Nick make the pick again. He's pretty much split between us. But if you want to plant it in Shaheed, we'll let him decide. But I just think, and again, maybe this haunts me, but I just, Palmer has that built-in chemistry. Quentin Johnson has shown nothing. Ladd McConkey is a fifth-year breakout rookie who did absolutely nothing the first 4 years in college. Once he was a man playing against boys, he looked good, but now he's a man playing against men. And
he still looks good.
You haven't seen him play against me. We haven't seen him play. What does he look good in shorts?
He does. Look good. But I can't do Palmer.
All right, let's go. I think we got Tyler in the chat too. What do you guys think? We can go ahead to the chat early and drink.
Okay. I respect it.
He's being so stubborn over here. He's got one player not willing to compromise at all. No other player to compromise with.
At this point in the draft, like I said, Palmer's my guy. Like, if you're in a draft with me, you're going to have to get him before me.
That's like me being like, Eckler's my guy, and we need
You're
to
just wrong. You're wrong.
That's how I feel about Palmer. I feel the same
Tyler,
way.
you want to chime in? You get a second opinion.
Shaheed.
Hold on.
All right,
Let's get a second opinion. Tyler's been active. Give him 10 seconds.
I think it's first come, first serve from the audience.
No, it's not that. We did not decide on that.
I mean, how do we do tiebreaker if Tyler picks somebody else? It's got to be first come, first serve.
If we have to have a tiebreaker, we'll let
the fucking coin.
We'll let Dan and Mason.
I got a free drink coin from one of my favorite.
She needs it because it's not Gabe Davis. So
that's not a strong opinion, Tyler.
Evan, Acme, the buy one get one deals.
Yep.
Got one of those coins here. Got a free drink coming my way whenever I go back there. But okay, says
Palmer.
Anyone but Gabe Davis, he says Palmer. All right, we're going Acme side is gonna be Palmer because I love Acme and I love Josh Palmer. And then we got beer side going Rashid Shaheed because you got to be drunk to draft him. Just kidding. I love it. We got the Acme side. So it is going to be Josh Palmer to my detriment. I personally love Josh Palmer. I think that he has been shitted on for no reason. I don't really understand. He's filled into the role that he needs to. No one's expecting him to be a wide receiver 2 in fantasy. No one's expecting him to take over and be dominant. However, the alternative downfield threat is Quentin Johnston. That's it. There's nobody else. They got rid of Gerald Everett even. They have a couple of bigger tight ends and Ladd McConkey, who primarily runs short to intermediate routes. There's, in my opinion, after we saw what Quentin Johnston could do, there is no downfield threat. Joshua Palmer as the downfield threat for Justin Herbert, much more preferable than the downfield threat for Derek Carr, especially given that the wide receiver 1 on their own team is Chris Olave versus Ladd McConkey. As much as I love McConkey, I'm not putting him over Chris Olave. So
for our pick here, though, if we did this draft yesterday, I would have absolutely slammed Kendre Miller. But I don't know if you guys even noticed, he left practice early today with a hamstring injury.
Questionable tag.
Yeah, and that hamstring, hamstring is one of the worst injuries that you can possibly have, obviously besides an ACL. For a running back, hamstring is one of those injuries that lingers, and it lingers all season long. So I was pretty high off of him going into the season, but that just already kind of shoves me off of him. The other ones I'm thinking here is Rico Dowdle, just because he has potential to be the RB1 there. I mean, him and Zeke are going to be fighting it off all year. That's more I'm into. Maybe even Antonio Gibson, because we already do have Ramondre. That's something that
I was just going to bring up the no handcuff type of mindset. I don't think we should take a handcuff here. Personally, I would take the handcuff to a A running back that I think that if I'm shooting for upside here. We're shooting for championships. If you draft a handcuff to a different player than the player that's rostered on your team, you now have the potential for two RB1s to pop out of that rather than just the one. If I was on the board, Rico Dowdle has the chance to take over the RB1 spot over Zeke without there being an injury, just due to age and efficiency. I don't
Yeah,
necessarily think that will be the case. I think Zeke will out touch him. I think Rico Dowdle will have more valuable touches in the passing work. But truly, my pick would be Marshawn Lloyd, and I'm very happy taking Rico Dowdle because he doesn't need an injury to go down to occur for him to be RB1.
yeah. Just in redraft, I mean, I like Marshawn Lloyd long term, but he's suffered a hip injury recently. Marshawn Lloyd did, and when you're a rookie, missing those offseason snaps is huge, especially when you have a guy like Josh Jacobs who's a workhorse. Um, that is a big
Yeah,
thing. During the other running back I'm kind of looking at is maybe J.K. Dobbins. I mean, obviously the injury history is gross and disgusting, but
I
it's John
I can't
Harbaugh.
do that.
I mean, I just wanted to throw it out there. I would say Dowdle. Um, if we went wide receiver, I would say Troy Franklin. But you just went ahead and chose Dowdle. I'm okay with it, but
Yeah, I mean, you said you would go Dowdle, and I'm fine with Dowdle. I personally would have taken Marshawn Lloyd there. The recent report said that Lloyd, it's not a serious thing. The report came out a day ago, and it says not expected to be sidelined for long. I get it though. Dowdle has the chance to be RB1 without any injuries occurring. That is an easy enough decision for me. So, you know what? I won't recap yet. We're both 2 picks away from ending our draft. Very close. I will say at this point in the draft, with the tight ends on roster, I'm okay with taking a second tight end. Um,
I am too.
yeah, we
But I'm also at this point. The last two rounds, if you miss on your last two picks of the draft, you're not upset about it. You'll drop it. Pick up someone else. Here, I'm
upside.
more looking for the upside. And when I look at who's available still, I say Troy Franklin has a lot of upside just because that connection with Bo Nix. There's no one really established as a wide receiver too. Uh, Cortland Sutton, like we were talking about, he was very touchdown dependent. Was the yardage there last year? Not really. I mean, he had some weeks where it was good, but I mean, Cortland Sutton, not a single week did he top 100 yards. The just potential for Troy Franklin, getting a wide receiver this late who could halfway through the season evolve into a wide receiver, the true wide receiver one. Sutton might beat him out for the year. Wide receiver one
Yeah,
on, but I think out of everybody, Franklin has the most upside, and that's what I'm more looking for in these last two rounds.
I'm also looking for upside, and I think that because our wide receiver core is so strong, I would go with a player on the same team, but in a different position. Jaleel McLaughlin, he's got juice. He's got juice. I think Javante's much more questionable, and the fact that even if Troy Franklin becomes a wide receiver one in this offense, it's a quick hitter offense. Troy Franklin's not making his money downfield. He's not big enough of a body of a guy to the point where I'm projecting anywhere above 5 or 6 touchdowns. Whereas I do think Jaleel McLaughlin could take over Javante Williams as the RB1, at least in between the 20s, not going to get a ton of goal line work, but he can also get pass work. I think McLaughlin, again, especially considering our running backs, we got James Cook, Ramondre Stevenson, Jalen Warren, Jerome Ford, and Rico Dowdle. I would like an upside shot of somebody who could, end up being the RB1 for their team.
Yeah, I mean, if we're thinking more RB with upside, Tyrone Tracy kind of piques my interest too. There's been times he's taken snaps this offseason with the first team where he's taken over the offense. don't think Singletary has that solid necessarily. It Singletary, it's his job to lose. Like he has
Right.
bad weeks. The Giants aren't going to be that great. They're going to be, they're in a very rebuilding stance. They could say, let's try out this running back. And if Tyrone Tracy, has a couple of good weeks, he could be the running back one there in a team where the passing should not be that good this season.
Well, yeah. So that's the thing, though. Tyrone Tracy was a wide receiver up until his last season in college, where he started playing running back. Still got a lot to learn at the position, nonetheless, in the NFL. And then on top of it, we've seen Jaleel McLaughlin have success in the NFL, whereas Tyrone Tracy has barely had success at the running back position in college. Singletary's, nothing special, but he's okay. But Daniel Jones is a rushing quarterback. How often is he going to dump off?
Yeah, I think there's a lot less competition there with Tracy. I mean, McLaughlin, I don't like him. I mean, you just went with it, but there's still competition there. I mean, Audric Estime has impressed this offseason. Javonte Williams, should be 100%, even though, there's rumors he might not even. I believe it was some Broncos local reporter said there's a chance that he doesn't even make the roster, but he will. I mean, he realistically.
Right. I mean, when I brought up Javonte to bring him up as our RB3, you said he probably won't make the roster. And then when I say the only other guy that has had success and is young in this offense, you say you don't want to draft him in the 13th round.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
I would rather take a Tracy just because I think there's a lot.
I bet you can take Tracy in the next round if you really still want him.
I mean, I just think there's a lot easier route to him being RB1.
All right, hold on, guys. We got to hear Lee's argument for Jahan Dotson real quick.
I disagree so fully. Y'all out there weigh in between Jaleel McLaughlin and Tyrone Tracy.
So, I don't disagree with what you're saying in the chat, Nicholas, but Breece Hall is just a monster. He has no chance of overtaking Breece Hall as the RB1. Breece Hall is going to be one of the only workhorse backs in the league. We saw what he could do last year. I feel like there's better shots to take than Braylon Allen, and I loved Braylon Allen pre-draft. I feel like it was an awful spot. I really only want to own him if I also own Breece Hall, and I'm just trying to do the handcuff. I don't want to take a shot on him when there's a Tyrone Tracy out there who his only path is Devin Singletary. And I mean, if I'm looking at Devin Singletary versus Breece Hall, what running back could lose their job? That's a no-brainer. But as far
really
as
quickly, just because you mentioned Tyrone Tracy, Lee, where are you at between Jaleel McLaughlin and Tyrone Tracy? Evan weigh in as well when Lee wraps up.
And I would go Tyrone Tracy.
I'd probably leave McLaughlin. Actually,
so less crowded.
No, never mind. Now I changed to Tyrone Tracy. I forgot about
Tyrone Tracy.
You are wrong.
Why Tyrone Tracy? Devin Singletary took over the RB1 role over Dameon Pierce in an offense that didn't throw the ball too
terrible.
Singletary has never been able to hold the job, though, in his career. He's never held that job.
He held the job for the first 3 years in Buffalo and then went to a different team and then took over the job.
He wasn't a workhorse in Buffalo, though. There was always a guy getting other carries.
Damian
the only thing is he's not even guaranteed to be the
guy that got the carries instead of
the argument against him is that they still have what's his name?
Eric Gray.
Eric Gray. Yeah, Eric Gray's there, dude. And he was taking a lot of good wide.
And it's the Giants' offense. How often are they going to be in scoring position?
So Eric Gray is like a better argument, I would say.
That's fair. But the other thing I would say is Tracy is a converted wide receiver. They're looking for people to catch the ball. If we're looking for value to add, I get that McLaughlin did add some there, but how many? What was it? 65 balls that Samaje Perine caught. You've got Javonte Williams. They just drafted Audric Estime. It is such a crowded backfield. I'm really scared to own any parts of the
Broncos. We have 30 seconds.
Are you guys that scared of Estime and his 4.72 40 time? Maybe. Jaleel McLaughlin is already not the goal line back. They are not in on the same snap.
Time out on that. We'll talk about that again in a second. We're running out of time. Obviously, I want Jahan Dotson. He had a pretty good rookie year. He was injury riddled. He scored 7 touchdowns. He did jack squat last year. But we have Jaden Daniels. There's not a lot of competition for wide receiver 2. If you're dead set against
Luke
Dawson,
McCaffrey.
I don't
McCaffrey.
mind. I don't mind a shot on Pearsall in case something does happen with IU. I don't mind Jalen Polk here either.
I'd go Polk. I'd go Polk here,
Okay.
just
I'm all right
because
with it.
of the foggy murkiness of IU.
I do want to say too, Pearsall is injured already, and missing those off-season snaps is pretty big. Especially
Wicks was the other guy. I didn't have a chance to mention him because we talked too much about that running back situation. I wouldn't have minded Wicks there either.
We're talking more about the running back situation at the end.
Yeah.
Here.
So real quick, we're down to our last pick, and it's really just a guy at this point in the draft. Again, I'm very happy with where we are at running back. I don't mind taking Tyrone Tracy right here as our last pick. If he's not the one, if you're dead set on a receiver, Evan,
Roman
to
Wilson.
me, I was going to say Quentin Johnson just to see what could happen.
I would go QJ too. QJ or Roman Wilson would be my 2 picks here.
I like Quentin Johnson just because I feel like at this point, if we don't see anything from him in a couple weeks, assume this is a real team. That's how you should always draft your mocks. He's an easy guy to draft. If he's just been beat out by Palmer and McConkey and he's third on the depth chart, I feel like he's an easy guy for us to dump and make room. I feel like Roman Wilson, you really need to wait 6 weeks to see how he incorporates in that offense.
I just don't want to. I don't want to be holding Palmer and QJ and have them be like flip flopping between good and bad weeks and have
Right.
2
We did draft
on
Palmer.
the same team. So you should be. In being so confident about Palmer, I'm surprised that you'd be willing to take QJ.
Honestly, I forgot that we got Palmer. I thought you won that argument.
So let's go Roman Wilson here.
I'm good with it.
All right, Mason, we're up with our last pick.
Got us to get 3
on
wide receivers
board.
in our last 4 picks.
Four
On the board, after Roman Wilson
rookies.
goes, and Johnson and Tracy almost made it back to us. You could have gotten your guy.
Yeah,
I would have given you Tracy if you made it back to us in the 14th round. In the 13th round, we went with Jaleel McLaughlin. Again, QJ and Tracy off the board. I think if we went with any high-end handcuff, Elijah Mitchell's the guy. He is going to be easily an R2, a top 18 guy, if he is taken or if CMC goes down to injury. I don't think we necessarily need more running back. So at wide receiver, there's Demario Douglas, Darnell Mooney. I will say I just recently reviewed wide receiver contracts. Falcons giving up $13 million per year to Darnell Mooney. That was as much as Gabe Davis with more guaranteed money, which was kind of insane. Feel like maybe he's being a little bit undervalued here. But
I do too.
Personally, I would probably go with a tight end here just to take a dart throw on an upside guy. Usually my last picks at tight end are guys like Hunter Henry, where there's no established wide receiver one, and he's got touchdown upside, or an athletic guy like Chigozie Okonkwo. It'd be the 2 guys I'm between here for the most part. What are you thinking?
I mean, so you mentioned Elijah Mitchell. You said he's the for sure backup RB for Christian McCaffrey, who's been hurt all the years. I'm saying no for that. We Niners brought in Isaac Gurendo. I don't know.
Gurendo, yeah.
He's a lot more speed back, and Jordan Mason has shown a lot of promise.
You do love Jordan Mason. I remember.
Yeah, I do like Jordan Mason a lot. Not just because the Mason name, but I do actually like him a lot as a player. So I don't think Elijah Mitchell's role as the backup is necessarily secured. So I'm saying no to him. Tight end, I like K-Dot. I do like K-Dot a lot. I mean, there's no competition there whatsoever. And, big old Bakeman. No, okay, well, I'm telling you, I'm telling you, Elijah Mitchell he's not necessarily number 2 back, and he's one of the most injured guys he's so injury prone. Jordan Mason, and like if McCaffrey's a clear number one, if he goes down, I don't see Mitchell taking over that dominant workhorse. Like I mean, would he get the most touches? Maybe, but I don't see him being that guy that he's going to take as much touches as McCaffrey would. Um, I would more lean towards right here though, Cade Otton. And this late in the round, there's only 4 other picks. If we don't take a tight end here, having that backup there stream, I do like Conklin as well. No offense, still there, who's a guy we could pick up on a week if Fryermuth is struggling. There's a couple guys that I think that can produce, decent numbers on a weekly basis that I think it's okay passing on tight end. If we went wide receiver here, I would say Mooney just because the contract they gave him. He's probably going to be the wide receiver 2 on a Kirk Cousins-led team. Or I would go Malachi Corley just because the upside. Mike Williams will probably be hurt at some point, and Aaron Rodgers should be able to help him.
So the reason I go Hunter Henry and Chigozie Okonkwo is because they can establish a role. They're not just streamers. I think all the tight ends that you mentioned will be streaming options at some point or another, whereas Hunter Henry and Okonkwo can be decided as early round guys. 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds. Who do you say?
Well, let's just let somebody pick because.
And it is up to the viewers now. Who would you guys take? Doesn't have to be tight end. Doesn't have to be a player that we mentioned. Who would you take at the 1408?
Jonnu Smith.
I mean, Tyler Conklin. I mean, Nick,
Conklin's
I do think Conklin is
He said
underrated.
Pop. Flip a coin between Conklin and Pop Douglas.
I do think Conklin is one of the most underrated tight ends this season, but
Wandale, Luke McCaffrey.
All right. He says Tyler Conklin. We go Tyler Conklin. All right. I also really quick before I select him, let's just take a look at his stats. It's just funny how consistent they are. 87 targets in the last 3 years, between 58 and 61 receptions, and between 552 to 621 receiving yards.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want you to know, if you find yourself starting Tyler Conklin as your tight end, you have done something wrong. You have
you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
Lee, I will make a bet with you that Conklin finishes as a top 15 tight end.
Done.
All right.
Interesting. Okay.
PPR, non-PPR, half PPR, any setting.
Let's do PPR non-premium.
That's interesting. I do think that Conklin is good enough to finish within that range, especially if Mike Williams does go down. But he's finished just outside of that range in half PPR leagues in every season so far.
So he finished last season as tight end 18 with Zach Wilson.
Yeah. He was 16 and 20 with the Jets in the last 2 years. Again, very consistent numbers. I'm sure if he got a couple touchdowns last year, he got 0 touchdowns last year. So if he had a couple, he probably would have jumped into that range. But, personally, Tyler Conklin is just a guy that is going to be the streamer you're looking for if you can grab him and you're fucked. But never a guy that you're looking to actually start. Let's recap the team. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your rebuttal there.
I mean, I did a preview on Tyler Conklin this year, and looking at later tight ends, he's the guy I am.
He's the definition of a Jag. He's just a guy. We've got more talent coming in. He's not going to finish in front of Brock Bowers, even in as bad a situation as Bowers is in. I don't think he'll finish in front of Ben Sinnott. And there's a couple of other rookies that came in that could surpass him. There were a couple of guys that were hurt last year. We've got Mike Williams on that offense, who's by far a better number 2 option than anybody they had last year. Brees Hall is going to continue to eat.
Zach Kuntz.
Zach Kuntz.
Zach Kuntz.
He's as exciting as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich when you've run out of jelly and you're just eating a peanut butter sandwich.
I think that this is the best mix we can get for a Civil War episode. There's definitely times where these teams were butting heads, and then we're also making arguments against our other co-hosts. There's like arguing within the teams, arguing against the other teams. I think this is a perfect mix. The last combination we have is me and Lee and Mason and Evan. I do think that you're going to see some joint sides coming and making some arguments for players that are, there's a reason why both of us are making the argument for that player. However, I digress. Let's recap the teams here. We'll start off wide receiver. We got Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave, Mike Evans, George Pickens, and Deontay Johnson. At running back, James Cook, Ramondre Stevenson, Jalen Warren, Jerome Ford, Rico Dowdle, and Jalen McLaughlin. At quarterback, Dak Prescott. At tight end, Pat Freiermuth and Tyler Conklin. On to you guys for your recap.
Yeah. So we'll start same position. So we went Marvin Harrison as our wide receiver one. We have Jalen Waddle, Cooper Kupp. Then we waited a long time to fill out the wide receivers. Xavier Legette, Josh Palmer, sleeper of the year, Jalen Polk, and Roman Wilson. At running back, we have Breece Hall, RB1, RB11. He's going to be the guy that can pass CMC this year. Kenneth Walker, Zach Moss, big-time sleeper, Tajay Spears, Brian Robinson. We've got Kyler Murray as our starting quarterback, stacked with Marvin Harrison, and we've got George Kittle at tight end. I really like how our team came out, Evan. The one thing that would concern me with this roster makeup in a real redraft situation is having those three rookies out of our last four picks. I got burned. I don't know. I'm sure some of you guys out there did. I had Odell Beckham his junior year. I mean his rookie year, and I dropped him early on, and then he came on and exploded late in the year. Rookie wide receivers a lot of times really come on late in the year. So you don't want to be necessarily dropping one of those guys in the first few weeks when they don't show a lot. But you want to have flexibility.
Exactly. We'd probably be dropping Josh Palmer.
Josh Palmer's going to be the wide receiver one early on. You can't drop him. So we're going to have some tough decisions to make in those first few weeks as far as roster flexibility. What was that?
I'm there with you, Lee. I feel like specifically with rookie wide receivers, like you said, they pop off at the later part of the year. Understand human emotion too, though. Like when you're going through the first 6 weeks of your year and you see this guy not producing, that's enough of a data point for me. 3 weeks is enough weeks of a data point to like, I'm dropping this guy if he hasn't produced by now. So why even spend the draft pick on him? Why not go for a guy like Adam Thielen, who in the first 5 weeks, his value has gone from whatever it was, like wide receiver 50 off the board last year, to now a guy that is the wide receiver 6 in fantasy or whatever he was, and then trade him at that standpoint for one of the rookies that you believe in plus a guy. So I'm fully with you there, Lee. I just don't see the value in taking unproven rookies late unless they truly have the opportunity to pop off and become that guy. And I'm not dropping them.
Yeah. And before we go, guys, I just wanted to speak out to the listeners. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We're continuing to grow. We've got a really solid number this week. Please come back next week. We're on, generally the same time every Wednesday. Tell your friends. We've got the season coming up, and we really appreciate your support. And thank you guys.
Truthfully, no, that's well said, Lee. I've had me and Mason ran down the clock to 1 minute where I was forced to drink, and all I'm drinking is Maker's Mark right now, to the point where I'm not speaking the best. All right, well, let's get out of here. Everybody have a good week.
Coming.
Yeah, regardless of me being drunk as fuck, like I will talk fantasy in my goddamn sleep. So let's go. Everyone join in. We'll have more mocks to come. Comment below too, like what you're looking for, what you want to hear in a fantasy episode and we'll give that to you. Everyone have a good week.
Let's get
Cheers.
ready for another disappointing Niner season. Let's go.
I hope all of that got in there.